A rare tropical setup as potentially two hurricanes could be right off the southeast coastline. Where they're going and how strong they could get in today's video. Welcome in, folks. Great to see you on this wonderful and beautiful Wednesday, September 24th. And boy, oh boy, did the tropics wake up. It felt like we went so long with nothing. And now we're talking about Fujiwara madness. We're talking about potentially two hurricanes right next to each other. It's a pretty crazy setup showing up on the models. One of the crazier ones we've seen in quite some time, honestly. Now, the big question, though, is what does this mean for everyone's forecast? And I'll be honest with you and just straight up with you in the beginning, we don't fully know yet, but it's going to be a tricky one. Now, we will be breaking down all of the possibilities in today's video, why this is such a complex setup, and you really get down into the nitty-gritty fun meteorology behind what's going on out there currently. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is Gerald. I'm a meteorologist at WCCB Charlotte. If you haven't already, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications so you're always up to date here with new videos every day, sometimes multiple videos, sometimes some live stream forecasts mixed in as well, because, again, things change on a dime here in the weather, especially the tropics. So good to always have that latest forecast right at your fingertips, whether that be your mobile phone or your laptop or even on your TV. Always good to have. All right, let's just dive right on into it and get right to the fun stuff here. And you can see looping next to me is the latest run of our European computer model. And sure enough, you can see right there off the southeast coastline, this being about early next week, showing some mischief. We've got two areas of low pressure spinning away, and both of them being monitored currently by the National Hurricane Center. In fact, if we go ahead and take a look at satellite imagery, you can definitely see we've got multiple areas of convection out here already firing up, not to mention currently still Major Hurricane Gabrielle up here into the North Atlantic, not hard to find. You can see it there spinning away. Luckily, that's not going to be a problem for anyone in the United States, maybe for Europe and the Azores here over the coming days, but not anything here on North America going to be impacted by Gabrielle. It's to the south. We've got two separate areas of investigation by the National Hurricane Center. And I'm going to call this one right down here our lead wave and this one our secondary wave. I think it's going to be the easiest way to define them instead of saying 93L or 94L because they won't keep that name forever. So we'll just call this one down here with the X the lead wave, and this one with the check our secondary wave or our following wave, or I might refer to it as a couple different things, but that's going to be how we define these things. Now, right now, neither of them are overly organized. They're both getting their act together. We've got some dry air penetrating both of the systems right now. I think that'll change though over the coming days. Now, the following wave or the trailing wave or the secondary wave more likely to develop here sooner as it's got some more convection. That lead wave fighting a little bit here over the open Atlantic, but nonetheless still trying to organize and become those two next named storms. And you can see generally the path they're on is somewhat towards the United States. So that's already a reason to watch it, not even thinking about what the models are showing, but just from the eye test worthy of keeping an eye on both of these waves. Now, because of this and because they are working into a more favorable environment, which I'll show you more in depth here a little bit later on, you can see that the National Hurricane Center is watching both of them. I'll quickly show you Gabrielle's track up here to the north. You can see actually likely to hit Portugal as a weak tropical storm or tropical depression here by the time we get down towards September 29th. So about 5 days or so from now, again, could hit Portugal. In fact, not often you even see little bits of Africa here in the cone. So interesting stuff there, even on the Moroccan coastline. But back home into the Atlantic, yeah, we've got a 80% chance of our leading wave forming over the next 7 days, and a 90% chance our trailing wave gets a tropical name here, even over just the next 48 hours. So things heating up. You can see the outlook from the National Hurricane Center, and you can also just see how close these areas are, which is what makes it such a tricky forecast. So because of that, let's go ahead and dive on into the current conditions behind these waves and talk about what the model guidance is showing ahead. All right, let's start with an analysis of the lead wave. This is a very useful website for things like this. This is SIMS. Basically, it's just a tropical website. But just looking at infrared satellite like we did, this is where the NHC has technically tagged the area of designation to watch, kind of within all of that convection right there. And yeah, that makes sense. It's about what you would expect to see here. And that's where we have some of the stormy activity. If you watched yesterday, I mentioned that the Euro AI model kind of had this not forming until it got over near Cuba and the Bahamas. And you can kind of of see why I said that might, be something semi-realistic. The track of this thing pretty far south right now, so it is going to run into some terrain, obviously ahead of it over Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and potentially Cuba. So that could definitely delay the intensification of this one a little bit. If we just try to take a look at some other stuff, so here's infrared. You can see it's got like I just showed you, basically, it's got some convection beginning to go up. Taking a look at water vapor, a relatively moist environment. Now, we've got some drier air in some of these darker colors, but generally speaking, a moist enough environment around this system that would be conducive of tropical development. The visible satellite, you can see the cloud tops again, kind of more of the same there. Now, let's see if we can get some AMSU data, and sometimes it runs, sometimes it doesn't, or some ATMS data, and it looks like we don't have any of that, so it's not going to be any use to us, but is what it is. We'll see if we have any microwave imagery. None over this right now. See if we have any other stuff. Yeah, so you can definitely see the MSLP there, and nothing really indicating that the system is overly developed right now. And basically, what I'm saying here is, yeah, this one's got a ways to go before it gets anywhere. But there are reasons we need to watch this one very carefully. Here's one of them. The sea surface temperatures out here are more than warm enough to support tropical development over the near future. You can see out here, especially up towards the Bahamas and Cuba, very warm sea surface temperatures, up near 30 degrees Celsius, and that is more than enough to kind of get things going, if you will. Ocean heat content is a whole nother thing out here. We've got not only warm ocean temperatures, that water goes deep. I mean, we're talking 100, 125, in some places almost 200 meters below the surface. That creates a very high-end environment for development. The max potential intensity, or the MPI of this system, would be relatively high if it were to develop into this region. Now, again, I think it's got some time to go before it gets there, but you get the idea here. What about some other things? What about shear? Well, let's put it back on infrared. And one thing, that is keeping the system a little bit more in check right now is we do have some strong shear to the north. We've got some vectors here, some westerly flow at a pretty strong clip up that way. But notice this area of high shear is surrounded by other areas of lower shear in those green and yellow colors. So again, that's indicative that potentially this could try to get things going. Let's also show you the surface convergence and divergence. Convergence there in the blue colors, divergence there in the yellow colors. Notice how they're stacked. So we've got surface winds coming together and upper level winds separating. That tells me that this system is trying to get its act together. And the final thing I'll show you on this map, vorticity, getting an uptick in vorticity as well. So it may not look overly impressive right now on satellite, but a lot of things here coming together saying, yeah, this thing could have a chance to run. And you can even see not a whole lot of very dry Sahara dust nearby. So interesting stuff. Again, I know it doesn't look like a lot on satellite right now, but all things considered, outside of some of that wind shear, the environment's pretty conducive. And then obviously the terrain nearby, we'll see how that kind of messes with things. But that's the lead wave. Now let's do a very quick same analysis on the trailing wave. All right, in the second time, we're not going to go quite as in-depth on this one, but I'll just go ahead and show you some of the same things. Infrared, yeah, not overly impressive right now, but it is dealing with some of the same stuff. There is dry air to the north of this one compared to the other one, so that's helping to keep things a little more tame. But remember, it's moving this direction. It's moving kind of away from the worst of the dry air, which is parked over the MDR right now, and why we haven't had a whole lot going on in that part of the world so far this year. Let's see if we have any scatterometer passes. Looks like we do. This one's a little bit old. However, you could definitely see earlier, this was, some time ago, but we've got some rotation of winds down here. So definitely it looked like maybe earlier on we had low pressure down to the south, now obviously moving north with the convection. But this one, again, becoming much closer to development. That's why the NHC has a 90% chance of development here. So luckily we got that scatterometer pass. Deep layer shear, it's in a favorable pocket right now of shear, so that also helping it to likely get its act together. It's got some low-level convergence, some upper-level divergence. Now, not stacked as well as the other wave, actually, but stronger levels of upper-level divergence. That's going to help this thing kind of get... we'll call it fanned out, right? Helping it to get its act together a little bit more. One other thing I wanted to look at was vorticity, and yeah, you can see also this one spinning as well. So you get the idea, and I'll even show you the sea surface temperatures, more than warm enough. Ocean heat content, yeah, also pretty deep, not quite as impressive as what the other system has to work with, but you get the idea. So you put all this together, and yeah, this one also likely to develop into a named storm, and again, this one being the trailing wave. So what have we gathered here? Well, we've got two waves, both of them working into favorable environments for development, and the NHC seeing that. What I'm seeing agrees with that. Now, let's take a look at some model guidance to find out where the models take these and what exactly they do with them. All right, we did the boring science stuff. Let's get into the fun stuff. Let's take a look at some models. But remember, one, the models have been kind of bad this year. But two, this is guidance. This is not a forecast, but I will give you my input on what I think the models might have right and what they might not have right. All right, we'll start with the old unreliable, right? The GFS model, which can be good sometimes, but we like to poke fun at it. All right, by Saturday, what does it have? Well, it has the trailing wave getting its act together, taking advantage of that favorable environment we just mentioned, and becoming a hurricane really not too long down into the distant future. The other wave, not developed, but mainly due to interaction with land, like I said, could run through Hispaniola, could have to deal with Cuba a little bit, so it gets delayed in its developmental processes, or processes, maybe is how you say that the more correct way. Either way, you get the point. You go further ahead into time, what happens? Well, on the GFS model, this is by Monday of this coming week, we've got a strong hurricane, a major hurricane south of Bermuda, kind of between Bermuda and the Bahamas. Then you've got that leftover wannabe tropical system. But what happens is by the time it hits an environment that it's really able to get its act together, it's done dealing with terrain, it's just got some small islands that wouldn't really mess with it too much. The upper level outflow from the other storm just kind of berates it and kills it. And eventually they merge into one storm, and you get a big hurricane to ride up not far between the Outer Banks and Bermuda here, or not far from the Outer Banks, I should say, between Bermuda and the Outer Banks there by about the middle of next week, about a week from now, and then pulls on up and out of here. That's a GFS model. I think it's onto something with a couple things. One, it gets the outwave stronger first. I think it's definitely got that right. Then the question becomes, does the other wave become stronger or strong enough in time that it can hold its own and maybe fight with the other one a little bit? Well, let's find out. Let's take a look at some other data. Here is the European model, generally the more reliable one, but not all the time. What does it do? Well, it's similar, but one key difference here on the European is you get a little bit more separation. Notice how these waves are a little bit further apart, partially because our leading wave here, the weaker one here on the left, kind of sneaks here between Hispaniola and Puerto Rico, can survive a little bit longer here in the short term, get its act together. And then because of that, by the time we get to Saturday morning, we've got two named storms. We've got a tropical storm here over the Bahamas, which could be Umberto would be the next name, or this hurricane out to sea, which again, that one would probably grab the name first. So that one would be Umberto. I believe the next one would be Imelda. I should probably check, but it's the I name. I'm pretty sure it's Imelda. And then what happens? Well, by the time we get into the weekend, they're far enough apart, they hold their own, and check it out. I mean, we've got arguably two hurricanes, maybe one tropical storm and a hurricane. Near Bermuda, we've got a strong hurricane right off the southeast coastline. By next Monday morning, we've got a borderline tropical storm or hurricane. And folks, I can't really put into words how rare this type of image is for the Atlantic. Now, obviously, it's a model run. It's not reality yet, so we'll see what happens. But it'd be pretty unprecedented to get two hurricanes this close to each other. And with that, you run into something. You run into the Fujiwara effect is what it's called, from doctors well long ago that study these sorts of things, figured this one out. And, well, you'll see what happens. Watch what happens. You get that system gets so close to the United States, and then instead the other system gets to the north of it. It's a little bit stronger, so it kind of slingshots our closer system behind it, and just is like almost a savior from above, right? It comes in and sweeps this would-be landfalling hurricane into the Carolinas back out towards Bermuda, and then kind of spins a whole bunch of different ways. So a very interesting look there on the European model, one you don't see very often. What about some other model data? Here's the Canadian. I'll sneak through this one a little bit quicker, kind of similar to the European, and the same idea. It gets that Fujiwara effect, pulls both of them out to sea, and not quite as close as the European model run. The Icon model, the German model, what does it show? Well, I'll show it to you. Here we go. And you can see pretty similar, but doesn't get the system nearly as close to the southeast as maybe the European had it. But still, two hurricanes eventually in the Atlantic out of that. What about the Euro AI model? Let me show you that one. Let me get my screen back in a way that you can actually see the time a little bit more. Here's the Euro AI model. I showed you this one yesterday and said I think it might be onto something. Well, I'm still believing that a little bit, and you can see very similar. The trailing wave becoming a hurricane. Now, almost every model, let's just stop here and mention this, every model has that trailing wave becoming at least a strong tropical storm, likely a hurricane. They're in good agreement about that. The leading one is where they differ a little bit, and it's going to come down to how close the two get. The Euro AI a little bit closer, but all of them doing this Fujiwara-like effect. So a very interesting thing to see on the models, and you can imagine it makes it a difficult forecast. Now, you put all that together, and what is the most likely scenario, and what does Gerald think is going to happen? Well, I agree. This wave out here, that'll become a hurricane, likely Umberto. The other wave, I think it's got a good shot to become something. Probably won't until it gets near the Bahamas. Then the question again becomes, how close is it to what would be Umberto, which is a little bit further out to sea? I think Umberto becomes strong, starts curving up towards Bermuda, and eventually what would be, again, I think Imelda is the next name, also forms maybe into a hurricane, starts to push north towards Florida or the Carolinas. And right now, I think with the Fujiwara, would probably get pulled back out to sea. That's not a guarantee, though. That's just where I'm leaning right now. And again, that could change. Let's go take a look at how that could change and why that could change. All right, so not only do we have weird steering currents, we've got the Fujiwara. It's just a mess of a forecast, folks, to be completely honest. Here's the setup, though. We've got a ridge of high pressure here. High pressure is going to want to push everything towards the United States, towards this upper level cutoff low that is likely going to break itself off from the flow by this weekend and get parked over the U.S. Because of that, whatever's down near the Bahamas likely, if you don't count the other system, would have a pretty easy path up into the Carolinas, just looking at the upper level flow. What can happen, though, is the other storm becomes a bit stronger, beats this ridge down a little bit, and kind of comes in and then saves the Carolinas from a landfall, or maybe Florida, again, somewhere in the southeast, Georgia as well, obviously included in that, and then kind of slingshots it out of here. So this is what a lot of the models are showing right now. It's the timing of this, though. If you don't have what is the stronger system out here, this is likely a bigger deal, I would say, and is an easier path for this other system to get pulled up into the Carolinas, given the upper level pattern. What you hope for, though, is this system out to sea is stronger, because that pulls this system behind it in the Fujiwara fashion and kind of saves the day a little bit. Is that a guarantee, though? Not quite. And you can see that here. If you take a look at the ensemble data, we'll move this over to this map. There we go. So you can see it a little bit better. Here's the European ensembles. And notice you've got the two distinct waves. We'll move it further ahead into time. And notice what's beginning to happen on the European. It's a straight shot right into the southeast. Some of these members with the leading wave actually getting pretty strong towards hurricane status, which obviously not something you want to see. Then you go further ahead into time, a lot of them throw this right up into the Carolinas, right into South Carolina, North Carolina. Again, could be anywhere in that range at this point. Anybody's guess is as good as mine, but you got stronger members in there. You've got hurricane members. Then, though, you notice a bit of divergence. See this cluster right in here of L's that don't go up into the Carolinas and instead get pulled up out to sea? That's because the other system comes in, is strong enough, and kind of saves the day a little bit, and Fujiwara's this thing out of here. So that's the European look at it. And, obviously concerning look in the ensemble is not a great one, but there's hope, obviously, that you've got this set that kind of gets pulled out because of the other one. Also, there's all sorts of environmental conditions the models are not going to pick up on right now, like how strong is the trailing wave? Does it kind of shear out the leading wave? How close do they exactly get? There are so many variables in this forecast that don't make it impossible, but make it very tricky. GFS ensembles out to lunch, honestly, I think a little bit here. You've got the trailing wave gets strong. The leading wave happens a little bit closer. They just kind of merge together and you get one big system, just a big old mess here kind of between the United States and Bermuda. So worthy, but it's the GFS, and I'm not buying that scenario quite as much right now. Hopefully it's right, though, because it's one of the less strong scenarios and keeps this in a safer place from land. Let me show you another set of model data. This will be the last set here for the tropics. Is some AI model data, and more close to the European set. You can see you've got two distinct waves, and like the European, a lot gets slingshotted right into the southeast coastline as a hurricane, some a major hurricane. Others get pulled out to sea with the Fujiwara effect. Again, notice how some of these L's in that left-hand cluster get slungshot to the right there with the other system. Right now, I think that's the most likely scenario. Now, not to say we cannot get a landfalling U.S. system. We absolutely can out of this setup, and we need to watch it because of that. But if it was life or death for Gerald and I'm at the forecasting table right now, I think this trailing wave gets strong enough, comes in quick enough that it kind of pulls what would be one storm here, and both of them get pulled out to sea. But again, we need to watch for Bermuda, and who knows? Fujiwara can do all sorts of weird, quirky things. If this wave out closer to the U.S. somehow got stronger, it could actually slingshot the other one back into the U.S. That seems unlikely right now, but it's all about the positioning and the strength of these systems that the global models just are not very good at figuring out whenever we don't even have a system fully named and formed yet. All right, that was a gauntlet on the tropics, but it's going to be that way this week with this setup and all the information I have for you there. Let's very briefly touch on the weather back home because this video is already way longer than I'd like and give you an update on that forecast. All right, let's speed run through this, to be completely honest. Here we go. All right, so we've got multiple pieces of energy kind of swirling around the U.S. right now. Just generally speaking, this big long wave, well, it's a really short wave technically in a scientific term, but we've got a trough basically over the United States right now, tilted very positively. So that's good news for us at the surface. That means the storm we get out of it likely not going to be overly strong. But you can see that this does try to become a little bit more neutral, negative eventually. And this is the same thing that's going to produce this cutoff low over the southeast that could be troublesome for the tropics forecast. Also on top of this cutoff low, I should have mentioned this earlier, and I know this is the back home forecast, but I'll mention it now. With a trough like this, you got a lot of divergence out ahead of this thing. Basically, you've got rising motion at the surface being caused by this, and that can oftentimes lead to a transport of moisture out of the tropics. So that's something else that's a little worrisome. Even if we don't get a landfalling system, you get any tropical system close to the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, that could transport a lot of rain up here. So we need to watch it, and I don't like comparing things, especially on the anniversary, but it's actually pretty similar to the Helene setup. Now, again, that's not my forecast. I'm not forecasting a Helene type event here at all, but, you know, this happens a lot this time of year where you get these cutoff lows, and they just funnel in a ton of atmospheric moisture and juice out in front of these tropical systems, and even without a landfall can cause heavy rainfall events. So if you're watching in Virginia, the Carolinas, Georgia, anywhere in here, I'm watching this either way, whether we have a landfalling system or not, for a flooding threat by early next week. So a little tidbit there, and we're already not speed running through this, right? I've already spent 2 minutes on one map, but that's what happens when you like what you do, right? All right, so what is this going to look like at the surface? Well, we've got a surface of low pressure here working through the Tennessee River Valley today, going to bring some showers and storms to that region. I'll show you where on a severe weather map here next. Then crosses, and by tomorrow afternoon, it's the Carolinas, Georgia, the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast, getting some much-needed rainfall, and that same general trend kind of continues, and this system lingers even into your Friday afternoon through the southeast. And you notice how the rain continues into the Carolinas even though the front is long gone. That's because that upper level flow I mentioned. You can see how it's just a constant stream of moisture into that area. That's what we need to be very careful of. Severe weather today, this is where we'll see the strongest storms. You can see here in this darker green shaded area, anywhere from southern Texas all the way up through Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, up into Nashville, Memphis, Louisville, Paducah, surrounding areas there, even into the Sikeston area of Missouri. I know that because took plenty of pictures and video of a tornado there, which does not feel that long ago, but about half a year, well, not half a year, probably 4 months ago, right? So again, tangents, whatever, it's fine. We do need to watch for some excessive rainfall today. Could watch for some flooding here into that yellow area on your map by tomorrow, and the green area, but the yellow area more than anywhere by tomorrow. Lower chances, but actually some flooding potentially out near Arizona tomorrow, so watching that. Day 3, notice what happens. See how we keep that green over the Carolinas? Day 4, Day 5, that's that tropical signal. Again, even without a landfalling system, we could deal with some flooding rains, and you could see the rainfall total over the next 3 days, you know, manageable for most of us, and again, much needed across the board up and down the eastern seaboard. But once you go a week out, see how that really gets bumped up into the Carolinas? Yeah, that's what we need to watch. And you can even see that here on the European ensemble. See how this is the next 10 days, I should add. You got that big plume of tropical moisture getting slung up into the Carolinas. Desperately need to watch that potential here for flooding. Again, nothing to sound the alarm bells on yet, but it's something that we are very prone to here, and we've already had that this year with Chantal, and obviously Helene last year. So try to avoid any flooding at all costs here in the Carolinas. All right, that's all I got for y'all on this wonderful Wednesday. It is, yeah, right, I think. Couple things. I'm working the morning shift tomorrow at WCCB, so you can watch me on Rising, download our app, and you can watch me there if you don't live locally. And I'm doing that again Friday. So the point of me saying that is I won't have a morning video either of those days. I'll still get a video out, force myself. It might take caffeine and energy, but I'll get some sort of content for y'all on the channel here. It might be afternoon or evening time frame both of those days. And then by Saturday, Sunday, back to the normal morning, afternoon-ish routine of things. All right, y'all have a great one. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you all tomorrow.